Welcome to a deep dive into Radhasoami beliefs and history. We've got some really interesting stuff to go through today. Looks like we've got scholarly articles, internal communications, wow, the works.
Someone did their research.
They did. And from the looks of it, they want to get to the absolute bottom of this tradition. So that's what we are going to do.
It's fascinating stuff. We're going to try to peel back the layers here, understand the core beliefs of Radhasoami, how this tradition even came to be, and of course, what makes it unique.
Okay, so I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but one thing that kind of jumped out at me right away going through these sources, it's the term Radhasoami itself. It's not just a name. It feels much more important, like it's a key to their whole philosophy.
Yeah, you're definitely picking up what the sources are putting down because it's very clear the name Radhasoami, it's incredibly significant. It's actually a relatively recent term.
Oh, really?
Within the tradition's longer history. And you're not going to believe this, but there is actually some debate about its use.
Debate. Okay, now you've got me really interested. Tell me more.
It seems like there's this real difference between, what the name means if you're just looking at it on the surface. Okay. The exoteric meaning versus the deeper esoteric meaning that's understood by people who have been initiated into this tradition.
Ooh, I love a good mystery. So what's the surface level explanation?
On the surface, Radha signifies this primordial life force.
Okay.
Often referred to as Surat. And then you've got Soami, which refers to the origin of the divine word, or what they call Shabd. But, and this is important, that's really just scratching the surface.
Okay, you've got me hooked. What's lurking in the depths?
The sources suggest that the true essence of Radhasoami, you can't really put it into words. It's something that you experience directly through this, spiritual process of initiation and deep meditation.
It's like a taste you just can't describe. You have to experience it for yourself.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And that emphasis on direct experience over just kind of like an intellectual understanding, that seems to be a recurring theme in Radhasoami.
Fascinating. So how did this tradition even come to be then? You mentioned that Radhasoami is sort of a newer term within a much longer history. So where does it all begin?
Well, the lineage traces back to Kabir, a 15th century mystic, and he placed a strong emphasis on the Shabd, or divine word, as like a central path to enlightenment.
Ah, so that connects directly to the Soami part of the name.
Exactly.
Okay, but what about the Radha aspect? When does that come into play?
So the emphasis on Radha seems to emerge later with this key figure named Babaji, who had a tremendous impact on the tradition.
Babaji, wait a minute, any relation to, the Beatles guru?
Common question. No, this Babaji predates the Beatles era by quite a bit.
Okay.
But it's interesting you bring that up because he actually seemed hesitant to focus on any specific name for the divine.
Really?
Even Radhasoami.
Huh. So that seems to contradict, like, the importance that's placed on the name later on. It's like they did a complete 180.
You're totally right. And that apparent contradiction, it's definitely reflected in the source material, particularly in letters between some of these early Radhasoami leaders.
Oh, what were they saying?
Well, they were concerned,
About
the emphasis on the name Radhasoami itself.
Okay.
Worried that it could lead to sectarianism.
Oh, so they were worried about, like, splintering the tradition, losing that sense of unity.
Exactly. And they actually even use the word label, almost like it leaves a bad taste in their mouth.
It's like trying to hold sand,
Yeah.
The tighter you grasp, the more slips through your fingers.
Perfect analogy. Some leaders wanted to avoid rigid structures and labels altogether,
Yeah.
focusing instead on just the core practices
Okay.
of meditation, connecting with the divine through the Shabd.
So it's almost like they're saying the essence of the tradition is more important than any name given to it.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. So, if someone was brand new to all of this and said to you, what do Radhasoamis believe? What would you say?
At the heart of it, Radhasoami really emphasizes inner experience above all else, not outward rituals,
Okay.
not dogma.
Yeah.
They believe you can directly experience the divine within yourself through meditation, especially with the guidance of a living guru.
Okay, that's super interesting, but I have a feeling we are just scratching the surface here, right? There's so much more to unpack.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what makes this deep talk so fascinating. We're about to delve deeper into their practices, the role of the guru, and really see how these beliefs play out in their daily lives.
So you mentioned before that the guru is super important in Radhasoami. What's their take on finding a true guru and what that relationship looks like?
Well, they make it clear it's not just about like finding someone with a big personality.
Right, got to look beyond the surface.
Yeah, really emphasize discernment. It's about finding someone who really embodies those teachings, someone who's reached a high level of spiritual realization, themselves.
So someone who walks the walk, not just talks the talk.
Exactly. Someone who can kind of point you in the right direction.
Okay.
But isn't going to carry you on the path.
Right.
They're really clear that it has to be your own journey.
Yeah.
Your own effort.
Which makes me think back to the Surat Shub Yoga we talked about. Is that where the personal effort comes in?
100%.
Yeah.
Surat Shub Yoga, with its focus on, inner light and sound,
Yeah.
that's all about directly experiencing the divine, right?
Yeah.
It's about accessing that level of reality beyond our senses. But, and this is important, it's not passive.
Okay.
It takes consistent practice,
Yeah.
deep inner listening, and of course the guidance of a guru who can help you kind of navigate those subtle realms.
It's so interesting how they emphasize the experience of Shab, the divine word, as like the real source of knowledge. It's like they're saying, don't just take our word for it, go within and find out for yourself.
Exactly. And that really speaks to the whole emphasis on personal transformation in Radhasoami, right? They believe that true spiritual understanding, it doesn't come from just reading scriptures or, intellectualizing.
Right.
It comes from a direct encounter.
Yeah, it's like the difference between reading a recipe and actually tasting the food.
Exactly. But they're also realistic about it. The sources acknowledge that this process, this inner unfolding, it isn't always easy, There are going to be challenges, doubts, even setbacks along the way. And, that reminds me of that story about, that disciple who thought that he had reached, like, the highest spiritual realm,
Oh, yeah. He got a little ahead of himself, didn't he?
It's a classic tale.
Yeah.
He had this really profound experience during meditation. And so he goes straight to Soami Ji, who's like this prominent figure in the lineage,
Yeah.
expecting, validation, right?
Right, of course.
But instead of giving him praise, Soami Ji, he kind of gently brings him back down to earth.
So how does he do that? What does he say?
He uses this great analogy. He tells the disciple that, reaching a high spiritual state, it's like arriving at the gates of this magnificent palace. But just because you've reached the gates doesn't mean that you've fully explored the palace.
Right.
Or understand all its wonders.
I like that.
Right.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really speaks to the vastness of the spiritual journey, this idea that there's always more to learn, always more to experience, even after what might feel like profound spiritual breakthroughs,
Right. Yeah.
It's really about humility, too. Recognizing we don't have all the answers, that the spiritual path, it's a constant unfolding, it's a process. But we shouldn't get too far ahead of ourselves. There's still so much more to uncover about how these beliefs actually play out in, the daily lives of Radhasoami followers.
Okay, I'm really starting to get how all of this fits together. The inner experience, the guru, that skepticism of just clinging to a name. But where does the rubber meet the road here? How does this actually play out in the day-to-day lives of Radhasoamis?
That's a great question, and it's where their focus on ethical living, it really comes into play. They really believe that true spiritual growth, it should be reflected in how you treat others.
Okay.
How you act in the world.
So it's not enough to just have these mystical experiences when you're meditating if you're not living a life, with integrity, compassion.
You're walking the talk.
Yeah.
Right? Putting your spiritual insights into action out in the world.
Exactly.
And they see this commitment to ethical living as deeply interconnected with their whole understanding of the divine.
Okay.
And our place in the universe. They talk about, the divine being both transcendent,
Oh, okay.
Beyond our comprehension,
Yeah.
but also immanent, present in all things.
So it's like they're saying the divine is both out there in the vastness of the cosmos, but also right here.
Yeah.
There's a little grain of sand or whatever.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
And that belief, it really has a big impact on how they view the world,
Yeah.
their responsibilities within it. It creates this sense of reverence for all life. Right.
This understanding that we're all connected, all part of this big unfolding.
Which kind of makes me think back to what you were saying before about their concern about certain groups maybe, taking advantage of the teachings.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that, no tradition is perfect.
Right.
And despite this emphasis on inner transformation, there are always going to be people who misinterpret things, misuse things. And I think that's why that discernment is so important. And not just in, finding a guru, but also in really evaluating how those teachings are being presented, how they're being practiced within a community.
It's a good reminder for any spiritual seeker to, Stay awake, ask questions, trust your gut.
Absolutely. And I think that's what the Radhasoami tradition is really pointing to. It's about that direct personal experience of truth. And it goes beyond just dogma, beyond blind belief. It's about cultivating that inner connection with the divine and really letting that transformation radiate outwards, into the world through how you live your life, compassion, service. Well, this deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening. I'm walking away with a much deeper understanding of Radhasoami and really a renewed appreciation for the power of personal experience on the spiritual path. Thank you so much for guiding me through all of this.
It's been my pleasure. Until next time.